And we're live.
Good evening, morning, whatever, everyone, and welcome to Between Two Keepstars. You're watching the number one show to air every Sunday at 2100, the show that I just mentioned previously. Anyway, so we have a pretty good show for you here this week. For those of you who don't know, I'm Karama X, joined by my lovely co-host, Ish Sidendalia.
I'm never going to tell
Ish.
you how to pronounce that because every pronunciation is worse than the last, and that's too fun.
Choose. Anyway, so we've got a pretty good show. Also, Happy New Year. To start to kick things off, I guess. How's you guys' Christmas?
Oh, it was excellent. It was great. Went to go see family up north that I hadn't seen in like 3 years, so had a great time. First vacation in several years because of all the COVID madness and what have you, and yeah, it was excellent.
Eh,
Mine,
that's good.
mine was very relaxed. Took a small break from the game.
Nice choice, nice choice. Yeah, it ended up taking a little break as well because hotel Wi-Fi is not where you want to undock your Titan. But it was good.
I
Yeah, I
know
ended
that.
up uh, I ended up moving across the entire country the entire time.
Oh,
Yeah.
so like moving house.
Oh yeah, no, I moved completely. So then I
Nice.
had to move in and then just took a break from the game. You want to talk about hotel Wi-Fi? I've been dealing with that for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, I can bet. I can bet. Oh, that's crazy.
I've been up in Colorado, and I actually did the Fox episode the week before last, from Durango Wi-Fi. And for any of you guys who know what Durango is, yeah, the Wi-Fi isn't there. Actually, isn't the best. We actually had a problem where my mom was trying to watch a movie, and I turned on my computer and tried to play a game, and then her movie just stopped working. So yeah, supposedly the best internet out there just isn't very good, but it was still enough to run at least one show, which I think a lot of people are now questioning themselves after that show.
Uh, I think there's emotional scars shared within the entire Eve community after that episode,
I,
which I,
I
I, I
had
want to point out I had no part in.
oh no, the reason why I did it was specifically because Ish was not here.
I just want to point out that I am not to blame for whatever scarring or therapy you might need after that episode. That's between you and Kurama.
There's going to be a New Eden post therapy fund for all those. Like, there's a lot of people now, and Spicy might be one of them, who didn't know who Doug Winger is, but now
Oh
they
man.
know. Now they
No.
know what he's famous for, and it's not just working on the space shuttle.
I didn't want to know.
Take things I wish I never knew for 1,000, Alex.
I didn't want to know.
But anyway, it's a new show, new year, and yeah, still waiting for that one surprise, which will be very very spicy once it things. We're working on stuff to make the show better. So just a quick hurrah. Forgot where I was going to go. You guys want to jump into the topic for today?
Sure.
Yeah, let's talk.
All right. So yesterday, for a brief synopsis of what happened, Fire and Test currently are in a joint campaign, pretty much attacking and hitting various structures and strategic objectives in the region of Impasse. Impasse is owned by, I believe, RMC. But anyway, they were attacking an Astra house yesterday. Red Alliance as well as RC formed up to try to attack it. RC RC came in with Ishtars. However, Fire decided to try and ref one of the jump bridges with four bombers, which, surprise, surprise, four bombers didn't actually do enough, and the RC fleet was able to get through the jump bridge, get to the place, and pretty much help out the Red Alliance fleet. Red Alliance dropped battleships, typhoons, as well as fax support against Fire's Fire's Serb fleet. Test came in with a retribution fleet that worked out about as well as you would expect it to. In the end, uh, RC and RMC were able to save the objective while only losing out on the ISK war by a couple bill, really. So, yeah, RMC and RC lost the ISK war, but they really didn't lose it by that much.
No, we did not. It was definitely a very fun fight. It did boost the morale of both sides just for a little bit.
So, Spicy, you were actually the FC for that fight. I guess I guess now that it's over, can you tell us like, okay, what was the planning like, and what was the actual fighting like?
So we came into the situation right. Of course, there's a coordination channel, right? There always is. Dodger hit me up and he said, "Hey, I have this astra timer." I said, "Okay, cool. I'll see what I can form." And this was about 3 hours before the timer, so I got over there with some scouts, scouted it out, made some pings, did some stuff, right? Um, and the work that goes into a fleet before fleets actually kick off is, an FC's primary duty is just to go, set everything up or have someone assist him in doing so. That being said, we got on grid. We brought the wrong doctrine. Um, this was the funniest part. We didn't know what fire was forming. Like we saw their ping, we were like, okay, cool, whatever, and moved on with life. And then like we showed up, and then Dodger was like, "Oh, they're in Serbs," and everybody in the command channel was just like, "Oh, we're fucked." Pardon my French, but like, we all unanimously said that. And so Dodger, of course, was in Foons and his faxes because he wants to save his structures. And we were in our hacks. We had about 30 hacks. He had about 30 Foons, and they had about 50 Serbs to start with. Now, what Fire is exceptionally good at doing is reinforcing. Like they ping, and then they can have dudes like in route, and like we don't really have people in between them to kind of stop their reinforcements, right? So when they start a fight with 50 Serbs, Arcadios likes to ping 700 times to wake all of the Russians up and get them in the fleet. And then they start burning, right? So 50 Serbs, you nuke 10, he's back at 50, right? So he just continuously gets reinforcements streaming in, right? Which is, very efficient on his part, right? It's cool. But
Yeah, it's their way, especially when it's a little bit off their time zone.
so he I saw him ping a few times yesterday, and we were like, okay, cool. Went into the fight, and we Dodger dropped in first, and of course we were coming through gates. And we landed on the Astra House, and I'm sitting there thinking the entire time, man, what's going to apply to Serbs? Wardens or bouncers, right? Because Serbs like to pull range; they like to sit about 130 off. Everybody knows that bouncers are more like a 30 through 70 sentry drone, and wardens are like a 70 through 120 sentry drone, right? So we dropped wardens initially, weren't applying very well. So okay, cool. We're going to go pick up our drones the best we can, and then we're going to pull off a little bit. We ended up just tethering up for a minute while I figured out my game plan and figured out what I wanted to do. And so we ended up dropping bouncers next. Then, like, I was kind of baffled because we immediately started just walking through Serbs. Like, it was, they couldn't even get their ADC off in time. Like,
Yeah,
we would.
what was? I mean, you just said you were baffled, so I guess the answer is you don't know. But what happens is Serbs should be able to stand a little bit better than that. But from everything I can see from BRs and a little bit of video, that didn't happen. So what's up?
I have honestly no idea. Like we run the so I went over the Ishtar doctrine quite a bit, right? Like me and a few other FCs collaborated on it a lot, right?
Sure.
So it's definitely got there's a lot of work that's gone into this one doctrine. And I was like, okay, well what can I do to make it fight a Munin and an Eagle, right? Because that's its primary counter is Munins and Eagles, right? Because Eagles, they bring AB Eagles, you just drop heavy drones. They
Yeah.
bring MWD Eagles, you just drop bouncers,
Right.
right?
Right.
Munins, you just kite around your bouncers the entire time. Easy day. So the thing that the thing that counters them is the Serbs because they shoot into an EM hole. Like you're literally at a 20% EM hole. So it's like, why are you not killing us? And we literally got to the point where it was like, I didn't understand what was going on as the FC. I was just like, okay, well, we're walking through Serbs. I'm just gonna walk through Serbs. We were literally alphaing Serbs with 25 Ishtars. Like on the kill mails, you can see literally like only 20 Ishtars shooting into Serbs, and the Serbs would just die. So
Yikes.
I did not know what was going. I didn't understand it at all. I mean, it's the fit is very refined, but I mean, you're also pulling like 425 DPS per Ishtar. That's T1 drones.
Yeah, and I looked at a couple of the Serb fits that got popped, and they you'd see standard and all block Serb fit. There wasn't anything like, you know, uh, weird about it or whatever. So it seemed like this was a shot calling issue because well, I can see the Ishtars winning. I can see that happening because, like you said, Sentry Drone's hell of an alpha. A good Ishtar fit can get a lot of work done. So I could actually see the Ishtars winning a fight. What I can't see is you just walking through Serbs like nothing. That shouldn't have happened. So
But so you want to hear the crazy part? The craziest part of the entire situation, right, was we were not alphaing scimitars, but we were alphaing Serbs.
yeah, something's wrong. Something's wrong.
I
Like,
did not know what was going on.
I mean, literally a Serb with like a shield extender and an ADC should not be able to get alpha that way. So very strange. Maybe we can get Acadia to come on and tell his side and give us the wonderful insights into how Serbs get insta-blapped by Ishtars.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, maybe he can, maybe he can't. I don't know. I don't even know if he's watching. But I think the funny part is that like we were just kind of walking through them at the end.
Who doesn't watch a show? What other Eve show is on at 2100? The answer is none. And what else could you possibly be doing with your life besides watching between two Keepstars?
Reruns of the meta show, dude. That's all we do.
Yeah, reruns of the meta show,
Reruns
dude.
of the meta show.
To be
I
fair,
need Brisk
wa-
Ruble in my life.
I do watch reruns of the Meta Show to get topics for the show. So
Well, yeah.
Oh.
Well, the live
Sure,
version is
got
also
it.
a rerun of the meta show. So, moving along though.
Either way, it was a very interesting fight, right? Like they ended up. So the Astra House, right, is it wasn't fit properly. I really hope it's not RF'd again. It doesn't matter though. It wasn't fit properly, so it's not like fully anti-capital, but it was. So they dropped like 6 dreads on it just to kill the 3 faxes, and we ended up killing 2 of them. So at that point, like I guess Arcadios got really mad or something. Like I heard him yelling in comms. Um,
In other
And,
news, water is wet.
say again?
I said in other news, water is wet.
Yeah, right. So I heard him yelling in comms about like, oh, the dread pilots suck or this, that, and the other. Or we didn't clear tackle well enough, and so he started like, at that point, me and Dodger were like, okay, we're getting out. Dodger was like, I have no reps now because my faxes are gone. Cool, easy day. He MJD'd pinged off, right? They didn't have a lot of tackle. So we just killed the retries, made them ping off, and then we left, right? So we pinged off, and then we got stuck in system. Not everybody had tether rights, so we were just kind of like, whatever, dude. We just kept pinging around. They started RFing the Astros again, and they put the test retries, right? And this is the best part about test, because bless their fucking soul. They're anyway, so they had the test retries camping the outgate for us, and they were RFing the Astros. The test had 1 bubble up on the gate. We warped to the gate at 0. We got dragged within 7,500 of the gate, right? So we just burned to the fucking gate, right? All of test jumped in, -4 retries, and scrammed every Ishtar they could, right? Meanwhile, all of fires aggressed on the Astra House. So we jumped the gate, right? And 4 retries were able to follow, right? We killed. Sorry, we didn't kill him. We warped the outgate. 1 Ishtar got tackled on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Jumped the outgate again. Fire is following us now. So
Okay.
we warped to 68 FT, which is the system we are going to go be safe in.
Mm-hmm.
Jump that gate and align the out gate. By that time, fire's caught up with us, right? So we drop drones, kill as many retries as we can to get out, right? We kill the sabers, we drop whatever drones we have left, and I warp the entire fleet to the Keepstar, right? So instead of tackling all the hacks, right, and this is Arcadios's brain for you, right? Instead of tackling all of the hacks, right, he literally primaried with every single tackle he had on field, just my monitor. He got one hack on that gate and a Hugin, and my monitor. When he had the chance of he had 7 sabers on grid, and he literally only bubbled my monitor. He literally only webbed, tackled, and scrammed my monitor. He
That's
could have gotten the entire fleet.
that's when you know it's been made personal. That always feels nice, actually. I don't know about you, but when I get primaried, or if my FC gets primaried, or really any time that you get primaried at the complete cost of actually doing something decisive and good in that fight, it just makes you feel good. You got to live in their head that well.
Oh
To
yeah,
be
That's
no, it was
that's
definitely
pretty
personal.
enjoyable. That's
to
pretty
be fair
enjoyable.
though, I did lose I lost a Bellicose.
Oh no. Oh no. Tears. I'm
And I
sure
only
I'm
lost
sure
that.
Hero's generous SRP program
Well,
will
here's the
handsomely
thing. I only
reward you.
lost that Bellicose because I was getting my Ishtar off and I was dual boxing. So
Yeah, so the Ishtar fleet that we run is very dual box and triple box friendly, right? Like
Yeah, of
I
course.
was
You
I
drop the
was dual
drones and
boxing
you're
as a
done.
FC.
Yeah, yeah.
So like you just assign drones to the FC and go.
Of course, that's why you do them. Okay. There's some more mystery here. I'm minorly obsessed with these Serbs dying. Right. Like I said, it's not unimaginable that they would die or that they would lose. That's not at all unimaginable. But going through some of these kill mails, they're taking the amount of damage that Serbs with reps should. Most of them. I see one took 16k, so it looks like he died pretty late into the fight. So probably not much reps left, or reps didn't hit him in time. But several of them took 20k, 40k damage. I'm not seeing one just glancing through that took anything less than like. Okay, here's one who took 3k damage. Who knows what the hell he was doing? Oh, never mind. No, he took 16k. So everybody took about 16k. So they went through the full amount of the extender because it is double extended, right? These Serbs have
Yeah.
2 shield extenders, and they've got a multi-spec, and they have an EM shield amp, which is dumb, but whatever. Not my favorite Serb fit, but it's not the most ridiculous one I've ever seen. It even has a CDFE in it.
Like even
They,
with the ADC, right? Like
yeah.
you're seeing that like Ishtars are still hitting 0, right? Like there's Ishtars still hitting 0 even
Well,
on
That
the
was
kill count.
actually
to be
that was
fair,
actually just a good thing.
RHP did do a hell of a lot with these Foons and several of these Serbs. Several of these Serbs definitely took a nice beating from the Foons. But if I look at just a few other random ones here, yeah, I can just see the bouncers just putting it out. Just each one putting out about 1,200 damage, 1,000 to 1,200 damage when you look at the top damage. So figure the average is like 700 damage. It's just a hell of a lot of bouncers.
Like even with
Um,
my 27 hacks, right? Like overall I did almost 1 million damage, right? Like
yeah,
it's significant.
yeah, it's definitely significant. The Serbs should have picked an engagement range and also picked their fight a little better. Doesn't look like they were primarying Ishtars. It looks like I guess they were going after the Foon fleet, which
Well,
they've
so at
popped
the
a fair few
beginning
of them.
they were shooting us. That's when we tethered up.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So like that's when I was like, okay, go pick up your drones. We're gonna tether up real quick and drop links. And then that's when like we were getting shot. We lost 3 Ishtars in the initial engagement, and then we rotated just above the Astra House. I think just out of range of them.
Sure.
Well, I wouldn't say out of range. I would say more of like made it not worth.
I
Just
think
an
it went quiet.
absurd fight. So somebody
Well,
asked, what's ISK spread in killing this monitor versus hacks? The monitor total on Zkill is 626 on Eve Tools. So it's 626 mil. I mean, it's not that the monitor is a bad kill mil. I mean, anytime you can kill a monitor, that kind of feels nice. It's like a nice middle finger to the enemy FC, whatever. It's a fact that you let 6, 7, 8, however many it was, you let several sabers get off the gate free when you can pop them in seconds. You let a bunch of other people get off the gate free, and the reason for popping the sabers isn't the massive kill mail, it's the compromise to the enemy fleet. It's so that you can keep an engagement going and catch stragglers. Sabers are there to protect stragglers, and you're just letting people go through free because you're so mad at Spicy. You're feel like this honor bound to throw your entire fleet at killing his monitor,
Well, to
which
be
is
fair, the sabers were successfully bubbling the fleet, and but the thing is that when Fire they brought their fleet in, they didn't tackle anything else. Like they just tackled Spicy. Like if they would have shot and killed Spicy during the fight, okay, that might have sent the fleet into a little bit of disarray, and then we would
right.
have had to re-anchor. But like we were already running, so it would have made sense to okay, well they're already running. Killing the FC really isn't going to do anything. If we tackle and kill Ishtars, then that's actually doing like damage to the actual fleet. Like that's doing damage to RC's wallet.
He could have literally tackled every single Ishtar on grid, and we could have done nothing about it because we were out of drones, right? Like we had like maybe 2 or 3 bouncers per Ishtar left.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was totally out of. Like I had 0 drones.
Well, and there's also a net effect. There's a drag effect, right? You tackle like 3 Ishtars, you get them caught, and then people are like, oh, that's 3 Ishtars, we can all fight. Oh, I have a few drones left, we can fight. And then everybody like piles up to try to fight, and they all get wiped. It's happened a ton of times, ton of fights. I've seen it on both sides. Happens all the time. But in this case, they just decided to go hellbent for the one monitor. Each Ishtar, by the way, according to Eve Tools, is a 274 and a half. So you kill 3 of them, you've definitely outweighed that monitor. You kill all of them, that's it's unspeakable. And I agree with you. If by the time you're heading out, this Ishtar's only had 2 or 3 bounces each, you should have been able to. You could have actually won the engagement on the exit. But that's not the Acadia style, so it doesn't surprise me either.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree with all of that. I mean, like he could have literally just held me there, and I couldn't have done anything. And so I was just we kind of moonwalked an entire 20. What we got 26 Ishtars or 24 Ishtars out. It's 24, I think. 24 Ishtars out.
Mm-hmm.
The entire support fleet and all 3 claymores.
Yikes. All right.
Oh, by the way, I didn't know if you know this, but Retries don't counter Ishtars.
No, they don't, and I'm confused by the choice of test here to pick Retries to bring to this fight. That is like the ultimate bring a knife to a gunfight kind of show. Bouncers and Retries, like that's not. You don't want that. What?
That's
Like
the no brain for you.
I. I'd go so far. I would be so daring as to say you could have brought even any other assault frig and had a slightly better chance. But of course, the right thing to do is to bring hacks or at least bring like corms or caracals or something that can like outrange like bouncers optimal and something. I don't know, but the retries that was not that was not the move. That was not the play.
Yeah, they definitely got introduced to the Ishtar doctrine in a very rude fashion.
Who was the test FC for this? I forgot to check. Let's go look.
So to be fair, the Retries, if they would have brought in the Retries, because one of the things that was happening, especially with the what was it with the Ishtars, was that the Ishtars would drop their sentries and then just run around and then just like run the fuck away. Now, if the goal was to, say, all right, we're gonna take these retributions, we're gonna tackle the fuck out of, these Ishtars, so that our allied fleet can go in and just like pop them as we're tackling them, that would have made a little bit more sense. But that's not what happened.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's what they were there for, right? If you watch the Retries when they were pinging around, they were trying to tackle the Ishtars. But
They just
tackling the
weren't
Ishtars wasn't
executing.
going to do anything.
Well, not if you're tackling the Ishtars in the range of their bouncers, no, because you're not going to live to hold the tackle. It's not happening. And also, if you're just trying to tackle escaping Ishtars, there's a bunch of better ships than Retries to use. Freaking use like Malers for that and crap like that, or what the hell are those shield? Moa. You use like a freaking Moa for that. Just something that's super tanky and can hold a point and has more EHP to it than a Frigg Hull. But whatever.
And this is 2 nights after, right? So get this. This is 2 nights after Tess dropped 13 carriers on an Astra house, and then they got like landlocked on their Astra house.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
That's
so we didn't go
unfortunate.
to that fight. It was I think what it was like goons and RMC. And Test brought like a 40-man Munin fleet. Fire brought like a 50-man Munin fleet, and then together was like 110 hacks or something. RMC brought about 30 Serbs, and RMC or sorry goons brought about like 70-ish hacks, and Test dropped 13 carriers on an Astra house, and they rage logged like they logged off everything because they couldn't fight it anymore. They almost lost all their carriers, and then they got landlocked. Them and Fire got landlocked in that structure for almost 4 hours.
Beautiful.
While goons just ran around and refed everything.
Yeah, that's some stunning competence. I'll leave it at that. I didn't see the fight. I haven't looked at it yet, but
So
that sounds like a complete cluster.
so
Although I
they
don't
brought
see the carriers on their lost mail, so they did at least dodge getting them all popped. But at
so wait,
what
they dropped
cost?
carriers on an Astra and then they were defanged.
No, I don't even see the fighter losses. I think they logged them before they could lose.
They so they dropped them, and then they literally like launched fighters, recalled fighters, logged off. It was the fucking. It was a meme.
Yikes. Yeah, they're a no dud. I'm looking for the dud Amatats or whatever, and nothing. Nothing. All these weren't even supers, right? There's just like fannies and stuff,
It
or
was
what?
just it was regular carriers.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't on this fight. It was 2 days ago.
Yeah, no NRGs, no nothing in their losses. So they did what you said. That's pretty incredible. I'd love an AAR from that. So if you're from Test and you have the AAR, why don't you come in to drag me? Defend your new Sky Marshal's goodwill. Whoever your new Sky Marshal is.
I think the new Sky Marshal might be Cameron Gel, maybe? I don't know.
Is that official yet?
I don't know. I just know that he is one of the command team.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really know who's leading the deployment. I believe during the fight yesterday, I did see Jeremy Undadari in the fleet.
Yeah.
So I believe I don't know if he was like the actual FC of the fleet, but he was definitely there. Which, Jeremy, if you're out there and you want to defend your use of the retries, yeah, feel free to come on.
I think it was the typical test excuse. So we didn't have the numbers, so we just brought something.
Jeremy's retry lived, so maybe he did it right. I don't know. I mean, I I get the idea of retries to tackle Ishtars. I think it's the wrong choice, especially with as hairy as this fight is. Like, there's already other stuff going on. It's not like it's just Ishtars on grid, right? So why bring something that risky? Like, looking at these retries that died, first of all, they're getting hit by bouncers, which shouldn't have happened. Like, you want to get them, like, you want to get the tackle engagement, like, outside of the bouncers, like, high damage range, and they didn't do that, because I see bouncers doing, like, most or a lot of the damage. And then also they're getting slammed by typhoons and with cruise missiles, which let's talk about the kind of retribution piloting that happens when cruise missiles are applying steadily. But yeah, that's a hell of a fight. Lots of lessons for FCs to be found in fights like this. Talking a little smack, but also seriously. Like, this is a good study in countering and in positioning, because you can trace, just looking through the BR, you can trace a lot of things that go wrong. But looking at the video, it also has some illuminating points. And then, of course, there were the 3 dreads on field, and what? 2 of them died. 1 of them died.
No, it was 5 dreads total. We killed a Rev and a Naglfar.
Ah, I see it now. Yeah, the 2 nags. Okay, gotcha. Yep, five dreads, lose 2. 2 subcap triage, and lose 2. which is I mean it's pretty hard to get uh overly upset at the losses here. Even with Red Alliance, being 48.5% according to the VR, ISK efficient, they still laid pretty heavily into Test and Friends, and they defended the objective.
The
No.
only thing I'm going to say on that whole fight is that if RMC, right, had left one of those triage out and
Mm-hmm.
brought two triage to begin with, and then dropped the third as the dreads were trying to extract, we probably could have killed all three dreads or all five dreads. Hindsight 2020, of course, right? Like
So the
reflecting
third,
back
the
on the fight.
Nanazu didn't come until later then.
No. So all of them were on field at once. They had a what
Oh,
was it?
see,
A
they didn't
tussle, a
hold him
Nazu, and a
back.
lift. Yeah, they brought all three initially.
I'm with you. Yeah, okay. So you're asking him to stagger him a bit. I gotcha. Yeah, it looks like. Hmm.
And of course, like it is what it is. The fight happened already, so it's just reflecting. But I there was what 2 fights ago that I messed up really badly with the Ishtars. So it was kind of on me. We lost pretty much every single hack that we had. Ended up being just a fleet of bellicoses and scythes.
All right, so now let's talk about that one.
Well, so it was all literally when I say it was all me, it was all me. It was like my fifth time flying this doctrine, like personally, again after what? When was the last time Ishtars were used? 10 years ago. Like
It feels like that at least.
it's been a minute.
It's been a
So
minute. That's fair. Okay.
so I dropped drones, right? It was over a jump bridge. We dropped sentries, and the test had Munins that time, and then fire had eagles.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought the exact counter. We had 24 Ishtars.
Sure.
So when we dropped sentries, Test had landed about 50 off of us, and these Ishtars are designed to run. Like when I say run, they go equal speed as the Munins, and they run.
Okay.
Um, so we literally kicked on MWDs and everything, and at that exact moment, I realized one, I forgot my snakes. Two, I forgot the right monitor, and three, I wasn't going fast enough. So, yeah, there's that.
Yep. Yep. So this happens, right? Not making excuses for you because it sounds like you sucked and died like you deserve to, like any FC deserves to if they mess up. But Eve engagements are interesting because it's like it's chess beforehand and sumo wrestling during. And if you miss that call ahead of time or you miss that preparation of the right implants, the right setup, the right positioning for the fleet, or the engagement tactic, during the sumo wrestling match, you just get utterly trounced if the other team has played chess better. And it's that double-sided coin, right? There are some fleets and some FCs who can play chess really well and suck at sumo wrestling, and some that are completely the opposite. And then you have the few rare FCs that just pull it off both ways and do both really well, and then that's what leads to really great engagements. But uh, that's something that I hope more FCs take some time to appreciate is the balance between what you're doing on field and what you do ahead of time.
Well, we were also like I also messed up in another fashion of like, and this is something that I personally like to reflect on, right? Is like I ran out of the range of my bouncers, right? So we ran about 120 away from the bouncers, so they weren't
Sure.
out. Like we were killing Munins the entire time. We
Mm-hmm.
traded 30 Munins for like 18 or 20 Ishtars.
Okay. Nice.
So we were trading very well. And then like I ran out of range, and by the time I ran out of range, I had to circle back into the Munins to go back into range. So that was another mess up of mine. So instead of like, running around and keeping range for the most part, right, keeping them at that 40 to 50,
Mm-hmm.
they were able to get on top of us almost at like zero, and that's when we started bleeding Ishtars quite heavily.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The range war. I mean, and that's really kind of what killed the Ishtar meta, right? Like the short-lived. Let's throw bounces and everything. Ishtars, dummies, all that. For null blocks, a big part of that is ranging. and especially with immune and getting buff after buff after buff after buff and things like that, it does it makes it a dangerous game. You should be able to trade well most of the time, but then all of a sudden you aren't, and that's how you lose your whole drone fleet.
Well, and I also think that it's up on the skill of the FC more than anything, right? Like the FC skill has to take great part in like how you play that chess game, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not playing chess well enough, you shouldn't be flying Ishtars.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. There's more pre-planning. There's more position thought than what you're going to see with like an Eagle or Mutant fleet, and I think that's another side of it. Is when you look at null fleets of any size, but especially when you start getting the larger ones, right? You talk about, let's say, 100 and up, or even 50 and up, and things like that. A little bit larger than what Hero's putting on field right now, but a lot of them really do just start to tip towards what's that easier win, and easier not just for the pilots but for the FC2. And I think sometimes that's unfortunate. I think there's a little bit of laziness vested in there. It's also one of those things like, yeah, easy for me to say they should go the harder route or the more interesting route. It's not my SRP fund. It's not my fight. It's not my fleet, and all of that. So yeah, there's a certain amount of risk assessment that always happens, and even for the most part, winning a fight with Ishtars versus winning a fight with Eagles, it's really a question of chest thumping, and that's about the only advantage you can gain from it. So there's maybe you could argue that's a lopsided risk reward, but it's just the reality that there is, and I think that is also part of why you don't see the drone fleets really out there to the same extent you see other kind of typical hack fleets, stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe that'll change. Could be interesting things that come as meta starts to shift, as meta just sometimes seasonally does, in spite of or somewhat according to CCP changes. It can go both ways, so it'll be something to watch. I'll be watching to see if there's more Ishtars that get cranked out there, because I don't know. I think
They're actually really cheap too. Like, have you
yeah, they
seen the
are.
price of them?
Well, yeah, it's like 27. What was it? What did I say? 245 or something like that. That's pretty damn cheap. It's cheaper than a Munin.
Like, it's way cheaper than Immunin. And trading Ishtars for Immunins just isn't worth them at all because it's just the price difference.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Like I've seen what are Munins seated on contract for typically in like coalition level, what, like 280, 290?
I haven't looked at contracts in a while for Munins, so that's a good question. I ended up building a bunch a long while back and just steadily chewing through that whenever I feel like going on an all fleet, which isn't as often these days. But that probably sounds right. I haven't been watching the prices that closely. So let's see. Our Ishtars were, yeah, 274 and a half, 274.4.
And that's at G to buy, right? Like,
Yeah. That's just Jita pricing. Exactly. That's yeah. That's just Jita pricing. And then if we look at the let's go to the Munins. Come on. Oh, Eve tools can't search by ship. Today I learned. Oh, we can only do it if you spell it completely correctly. And I forgot there's an extra N at the end of Munin. Alright, so just as an example, Frat did just lose a Munin. And their fit's pretty standard. Yeah, everybody uses the same Munin fit, right? It has there's like 3 modules you change, and that's about it. Theirs came in at 242, so a little bit cheaper according to, that's balancing, just the Zkill prices. There's obviously some inaccuracies there and things like that, but the Ishtars still come up. They're at least, let's say at the worst case scenario, they're at least comparable to Munins.
I mean, it's like that 9 bill hell that died the other day.
Yes, the 9. But yeah, anything big that dies on Zkill, the salt grains have to increase in accordance with the size and rarity of kill. Anything with abyssals, anything with even officer, but anything that's more rare that dies, the prices can be terrible. Like, go look at any Revenant kill mill and tell me you can get a Revenant fit that cheap anywhere.
I mean, you can't anymore.
That's true. There's a lot less of them. Um,
I have one of them.
Jealous. Nice space poop.
I don't want it. It's such you think you think I want something hunted that much? No.
Wow.
Get out of here.
Ranger Regiment uses really weird Ishtars. Anyway, beside the point. Okay, so there you have it. And then FC, of course, Arcadia goes and lies and says that they won the score because they can't seem to tell the difference between RMC and RC, and that one letter, I guess, is just a bit too much to discern. So and then yeah, and then says he forgot to tell his fleet to pause it. Is, is that or is that not what they came to do? How do you forget your main objective? How does that work?
So this specific Astra House, they've like it's kind of hilarious, right? This one Astra House we fought over, I don't know, 5 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um the day before we formed, what it was New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. We formed because Arcadios, right? He's the guy that likes to waste time. He'll come and sit in your space for 4 hours, rage pinging his coalition, sitting in a safe or sitting on grid with you while the objective's already lost, just trying to get a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him ping his coalition like 10 times just to try to get numbers. Um, and he'll he he got mad the other day that we outformed him. We outformed him by like 20 hacks. It was nothing big. It was nothing like, we outformed him by like 200 people. No, it was literally 20 hacks.
Yeah, well,
Right?
at the scale of your respective fleets, that's what I would expect when you say outformed. It's not going to be 200. It's going to be 10 or 20. But sure, go on.
Well, so goons were at this one, right? And we still only outformed him by like 20 hacks.
Okay.
And so, like we showed up. It was us, goons, and RMC. We
Right.
showed up. We were there. The Astra House repaired. Right. That was the third time it's repaired, and each time it's repaired back to full.
Okay.
He rage reinforces it like right after we leave. Like we'll leave and we'll go home, and he'll just rage reinforce it, and then he'll reinforce all of the infrastructure that he can for like 2 hours.
Okay.
So like it was a rage reinforce, so we pinged for it, and of course it's an Astra House, dude. Nobody cares about an Astra House.
Of course not.
And so we just keep fighting over it, and he keeps just being like, "Oh yeah, no, these guys are panicking, these guys are crumbling, like all this other stuff," and he's just lying to his line members. And I'm just kind of like, dude, like I tell my guys the same thing. Like this is just like a proxy war for us. Like we're just over here for fun. Like I'm here to help RMC whenever possible because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So
No, it's how you get fights, especially when you're a newer group like HC or like Hero Coalition, and you're starting out. You need to find some fights to join. You got to join one side or the other so that you can get consistently called for those fights. Nobody likes the eternal third partier, so it's a good thing. And I've said to Loki before, I think it's great that Hero Coalition's doing what they're doing, and we need more groups like that. We need more net new entrants to the game, and in terms of groups and stuff. So I think it's great.
And I
uh,
think
go ahead.
I was about to say, and I think it was said earlier that I think RC would rather fight them in impasse and fight them there than fight them in catch. Because let's say test and fire, if they do take over, impasse, what's going to stop them from, going, okay, now we have impasse, let's go to catch. Okay, now that we have catch, let's go to Pravi. Like, there really
Mm-hmm.
isn't, like, so test back when I was in it, test really wanted all this extra space, and their thinking was that if we have all that, like we don't know what CCP is going to do to the game, we want all this space. We're doing this just to make sure. Like they test had owned pretty much the entirety of the South at that point, and Fire, if you know, with Fire's size and especially how much they recruit and all the different alliances they have, those alliances pretty soon will be like, well, I want my own space, I want my own region, and yada yada yada.
Well, so we're like everybody leaves these two groups out of it, but Farah and FKick, right? They're currently purging Esoteria of all of the AOM and IOU influence that was there because they won the war um, after the IOU collapse. But they've also made pressure on AAA space and some catch space that aren't goons related, right? And that's the thing that these groups are doing is they're just avoiding the goon influence and catch, so they don't attract the goon fleets, right? So like it's really easy for them to dance around that.
And what was that whole war with that happened down south with AOM and all those guys?
So every now and then, Stainwagon just kind of gets uppity, and they'll come and take all of the South, and then eventually someone will come slap them, and then they'll go back to Stain.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
And so the Stain Russians basically declared war against AOM and pretty much purged Esoteria.
So back when they first took ESO, because that's kind of their ancestral like war zone, right? Their ancestral deployment spot. Um, Back in 2012, I think it was, when I was doing my thing, I had my own alliance, all this other stuff. We what you call it? We were assisting them, right? We were their primary U.S. time zone group, and we were attacking ESO. So back in 2012, the same thing was happening. So it's every like 5 or 4 years or something. The Stain Wagon group will either get slapped out of space and they'll go back to Stain, or they'll wage war on ESO and then they'll expand from there because they have their entire infrastructure network set up in Stain, so they don't need anything else. Like all of their jump raiders come through that one like TTAC-R system that you can jump a jump raider to from lowsec. It's in range of a Mar immediately. So they have their entire infrastructure set up there, so they just kind of seed stuff and then invade ESO, take Paragon's soul, and expand from there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a pretty vicious cycle.
It's pretty fun though if you know how to fight them. Like it's a guaranteed war always eventually. So
I mean, it's just like the whole, the Goon War is pretty much on a clock. Like every 5 years, the entire galaxy forms up to go and kill goons.
I think the next fight is gonna be that, but it's gonna be Frat instead of Goons.
Maybe.
I don't think it'll be goons this time.
I don't either. I think the next major New Eden War is going to be the Universe versus Frat because there's all kinds of reasons. We'll see though, because that'll be interesting. Because then what happens? Do we end up with what would that be? Gapappy? Gappy? I'm already
Gappy.
calling it Gappy. I'm calling
I,
it Gappy starting today.
I'm
So
be
I don't
real. I
think
don't think goons are gonna side with Test or anyone.
I
I think
don't.
goons will attack from the south, and then Pappy may like either help defend or it'll be another big war. But I also don't think like these big wars are healthy for the game. But I also don't think the big blocks are healthy for the game. So it's kind of like a sideways thing. It's a sideways ideology that I've always had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
As long as
the larger the wars, the more the manpower goes in there, right? The less the industrial people want to play because they don't really want to be a part of that, and then they get ganked, and then they're like, "Well, it's no point logging in now."
yeah, I mean they were definitely especially during the Vietnam. We had there were multiple streamers. Well, there was actually multiple streamers that were in these null blocks, but they didn't want to have anything to do with the war. One of them notably was actually My Left Arm, who had a faction and was in the war, but he said multiple times on his stream, like, I mine and I do industry, and that's how I support the war.
Whatever floats your boat. I think warfighting is fun. I mostly like deployments. I enjoy them even if others don't. I think they can lead to some interesting engagements. I think it can just be fun, something to do. We can talk about how anticlimactic and disappointing Vietnam became and all of that, but that's been talked to death. But as far as
Oh
actually
yeah.
deploying out and doing it, I think it's a lot of fun, and that's something I don't regret being in Horde for a lot of reasons. I think it's good for my corp. I think we are successful with what we're doing, and I think Horde is actually a genuinely good block. At the same time, the smaller, scrappier groups out there, the smaller, scrappier alliances, uh, they can pretty much spin up a war or go find one almost whenever they feel like it, and it doesn't become this tie-dye pile-on thing. It's just 100 dudes in a system, or it's 60 dudes or 40, just duking it out for every day for a few months, and that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. The
Well,
cyclic little and micro invasions are good for the game.
so the real question, right? Like you say that, but where there's no real place to go in Eve right now, right this second. There's no real place to go in Eve other than Cloud Ring or Pureblind, right? To be a part of the GTC that does that, right?
Hmm.
Like it's if you go somewhere, right? You're going against Goons, you're going against Fire. Now you're going against Farah, F Kick, and Esoteria, and then you're gonna go against Horde, right?
Hmm.
Test isn't relevant anymore, so I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so like or you're gonna go against frat, right? And all these groups will form you 400, 300 people just to come and purge your structures or purge your deployment, right? Like it's that kind of thing that like right now it's just kind of, and of course the map's gonna change, right? Give it 4 months, the map will change completely. But it's just kind of that thing that like the small groups run into is just like we don't really have a way to go somewhere and maintain an income to the point where we can actually be deployed long term or do that thing long term, right?
That's the biggest challenge, and yeah, I hear you there because I can make arguments about places you could go to find fights for yourself, but I also understand smaller groups like Hero Coalition and whoever else, going on deployment for months on end to fight some endless fight isn't really the same attractive prospect because you don't have the income generation backing, to keep up the SRP wallet, to keep up everything indefinitely if you're also trying to get members out on the front. You just you don't have the liquid and the buffer, and you don't have the production back end. So, but it'll be interesting to see how things change. I think, looking at current soft maps, right? So, Fire is sprawling right now, right? They're in full on sprawl mode. They're gonna keep. They're kind of bound. I guess you could argue they could go and start knocking out some stuff in cache. But they're starting to get some growing pains at this point. They have Amencia. They could go towards Amencia or they can go towards cache, right, to grab a few more territories. So any of that should lead to some nice pockets of conflict that's near to home for you guys, yeah?
Well, so Fire proper, okay? Fire proper lives in Wicked Creek, Scalding Pass, Torrid, Innsmother, and Curse,
Right,
right?
right.
Tyre, which is their split off coalition because they were tired of getting pings for everything, which by the way, they still do get pinged for literally everything, right? Like Tyre did
Of
nothing,
course.
it just made it more complicated.
Yeah, that doesn't do anything to get to
Yeah.
split off that way.
Tyre owns Amencia, Tenerifis, Omist, and Faithabolus.
Okay, so they are in Tyre is in Amencia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Tyre owns all of Amencia, Tenerifis, Omist, and well, not all of Omist yet, but they're
I
working on
thought they
that.
were mainly in Faith and 10, so I didn't even know. I didn't even know they were they had stuff in Omist, so they're a little bit bigger than I thought.
Well, they're getting stuff in Omist. Well, they're just purging the region of like Out of the Blues influence.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
Aeon's
sure.
influence.
Where
Like,
where are mangoes now? Where are they? Let's see.
yep.
They go entirely to the north?
I have no idea. They sold their Keepstar in Omist
Yeah,
after it got refed.
yeah, I heard they sold structures. They sold more than that Keepstar, but they sold the Keepstar was obviously the most notable thing. But they sold a few things. I don't see them on Verite's map, but
The
I
Army
was
of
kind of
Mangoes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're in Esoteria.
oh, they moved to
They own
Esoteric. Hey,
all of
Don.
Esoteria. Hello.
I gotcha.
Real quick, I'd like
I
to
was
introduce
told that I-
Don Ray from Data Thursday.
Let's say,
I
how
was
many
told that I
pockets
can make fun of Test for fail skating.
You can always.
Fantastic.
You can make
That's what
fun
we
of
told them
anyone.
would happen. I distinctly remember an episode where I was very drunk, but I distinctly remember asking Billy if he was comfortable with killing his alliance, and he said, "I'm willing to take the risk." All right, buddy, and here we are today.
Is there
But it's
an episode of Trash Talk Tuesdays where you're not very drunk, Don? Just kidding.
Yeah, thank you.
was about to say, technically Test isn't his alliance anymore.
Yeah, Test still has Dreadit, so Dreadit's recruiting, right?
No, it's IQ 300 is recruiting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but the meme was Dreadit's recruiting. Maybe it was before your time.
That's when they actually had a presence on Reddit, but they don't anymore because they can't show their face anywhere.
Spicy, as the Prime Minister of Propaganda for Hero Coalition, we are co-opting that meme.
Oh God. You're the Prime Minister of Propaganda? Who authorized that?
Self-appointed Prime Minister. of
That sounds pretty. That sounds pretty spontaneous.
Or
Yeah,
no,
that sounds pretty self-appointed right there, bud.
I mean, it sort of is. Technically, I'm the Director of Truth.
Ah,
I mean,
okay.
at this point,
Excellent.
this, between two Keepstars, you might as well just name it between two faction forts,
Yeah, no one has any Keepstars anymore.
like
Keepstars are
gone.
passe. Between two Marginuses.
yeah, right.
Listen, we've got one. Between two Keepstars has at least one Fortizar.
Perfect. Slowly amassing amazing and stunning powers.
I mean, I said we were gonna make the high sec version of 1DQ. Like that is the goal.
So you need 5 Keepstars and 2 Sotios, 2 Tatara. No, 3 Sotios, 2 Tataras,
By the way,
we're taking donations,
hold
Don.
on.
and 40 faction forts.
Hold on. I really have a question, right? And this is more
Uh-huh.
of like a meme question.
Okay.
So since Villy was the one who set up the TTT, okay, and
Sort
it, like
of,
what
but
it
go
was like
on.
45% went to test, and like some other percentage went to horde, and then like 20% went to goons, and then some other percentage went to frat, right?
Sure.
Some sort of the pie, right? Some sort of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So now that
No,
Villy
it is
left test,
It is a question. Where does all that pie go?
where
Is
where's
Horde just like gorging on like 2/3 of a pie while everyone else looks at him like the fat ass he is? I don't
yeah,
know.
like is Gobbins just raking in the cash now? He's just fucking filthy rich now.
I
I
genuinely
feel like
don't know.
the TTT's deal they make usually every year or so roughly. So I can only hazard a guess that if it hasn't already been decided, it would have been decided before the beginning of the year. That they probably are like, okay, Test will get it. It's going to go to this holding corp or whatever, and they've picked somebody at Test to take it. Though honestly, Test numbers and ability to fight, I wouldn't really see them as much of a threat in high sec. The only reason why they'd still get any money is just so that no one has to deal with it.
So the test ability to fight in numbers is actually something I wanted to bring up here. So if you look at the battle report that was actually linked in chat, in this battle report, Test had 25 members. Now Test is roughly 10,000 man alliance, maybe. They brought 25. Severance brought 23.
Well,
yeah,
there's
Severance actually knows how to run in a fleet.
Now,
a difference in
Hero.
investment there too.
Now,
So
Hero
Severance cares
Coalition,
more.
which Hero is like a less than 1,000 man alliance, brought 14. So an alliance that is maybe 1/10 the size brought 3/5 the numbers of Test.
I mean,
Almost.
this is always going to happen unless it's like literally on their doorstep. Any of the large blocks. This is true for Horde. It's true for Test. It's true for Goons. Um, they're gonna bring a small slice compared to people who have either more skin in the game because they're smaller and it affects their power dynamics more, or quite frankly, they're just looking for a fight, something to do. There's a lot more to do when you're in a null block. There's a lot more activity to be found.
Well, so I mean, again, right? Like Hero Coalition just picked up all these corps, right? We're at what, like 1,000 people now, so I wouldn't say we're a small alliance. Anyway, so we just picked up all these corps, right? They got to move in, they got to get settled, they got to get their stuff set up, right? They got to get everything that they need to be comfortable set up, right? So like, I'm not expecting like the reflection of all the people that we just picked up to be in fleet numbers immediately, right? Like I give them like a month or it's like a month or 3 weeks to like settle in, figure out the zone, figure out the area. Because I know when I move to new space, right, I'm in there, dude. I'm going immediately. I sell all my shit. I move my 17 Titans, and then I move on with life, right? Like that's it.
I mean, I wouldn't know what having to leave your space feels like. I got to keep mine.
I'm a nomadic
Womp.
FC, so
Haven't been with them long enough then to remember. But we all move space.
I've been with Goons for 5 years now.
yeah, that's not long enough.
Not
Yeah.
long enough.
Didn't remember the last
5.5.
eviction.
5.5. No, I had joined out like 8 months after that.
That was a fun war. That was one of my favorite wars.
Are you talking about World War B,
Yeah,
like the first one?
Hmm.
the first one, yeah.
That honestly, like my personal thing of World War B, the first one, I like, yeah, it was fun, but then goons packed up and went to Cernan, and it really wasn't that fun anymore. Plus, you had like the casinos helping fund the war, and it got to the point where it was like, okay, just more tie dye fest. For me personally, I think Vietnam was like, okay, this is it. This is what World War B, the first one, should have been. And
I don't know. Those last 4 months of Pappy literally doing nothing was a little tough
I,
and a little excessive. Like, I really,
I
if
don't
they were
count those.
just gonna give up, why didn't they just give up 4 months prior and save everybody the time and hassle?
I think at that point, it was more like, I guess for me going on Slates, it was just more about content. It was more about just fighting the goons, because like I've been fighting goons pretty much for 10 years. I joined Eve right when Test was all happy in Fountain, and I was like, yeah, Fountain, and I was having fun and doing all that stuff, and then goons invaded, and I was like, okay, well, I guess goons are now like my forever enemy because they they invaded
They
my
slapped
home.
you first. They
Yeah,
slapped
and
you
so
first.
and so technically, so actually no, so now I can actually say that when it comes to Vietnam, I met my personal objective because my ancestral homeland was Fountain, and we took back Fountain. The very first system I ever lived in was Y2. That was also the first system that I lost like a bunch of my ships in and had some pretty stupid losses, which makes it kind of fitting that Y2 was also the system where again the whole Keepstar thing happened.
Hmm.
Well, I have to say like the first one was my favorite, literally just for the fact that like back in the day, right? Like doctrines were so much simpler, right? Like you had super heavy tanked T3Cs and like they had no sig, and you form max against them or you form a T3C fleet against them. And then it was just the chess game, right? Like everybody was flying the same thing, and then all you played was chess on field, right? If you didn't play chess properly, you had a chance of recovering, but then it just became a giant like chess game, and it was so much fun. It was by far my favorite war in Eve to date.
I will give the goons definitely credit though, is that in this war they definitely took what they learned in the last war and then applied those lessons to then put themselves in a situation where Pappy pretty much couldn't win.
They could have.
They
Like,
absolutely
anyone could
could
have.
have if
It's
part
just,
of
it's
Pappy
all
had.
about how long is it gonna take, and did people have the drive to do it? Because yeah, eventually, like, if the numbers hadn't gone down on Pappy's side at all, they could have just kept pushing.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean
so
that
they
was.
kind of the strategy behind it was just kind of led by people that didn't have a brain. So
Well, I
The
wouldn't.
fact that they didn't have a cohesive, like, this is the person making the choice, and we're all gonna advise them and accept that. That was part of the problem.
You had a lot of power dynamics from people who then just simply exited by evacuating all their stuff first and then telling their members that, hey, I evac my stuff, you should do it too. And then you just start losing numbers, you start losing cohesion, and the remaining groups that were really like that remained ready for that final push also had absolutely the least to gain or lose from it, which means you just don't do it. At that point, it just fizzles out naturally. There's no point in taking even less numbers, pushing into a hellacious front, and then having no real gain to be had from it when the people who gained the most exited earliest, or could
Yeah.
have gained the most, I should say. Instead, they lost a ton. And it's understandable why they did. Understandable. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just saying, pragmatically, they didn't have the funds to continue it. But what they should have done is been upfront and clear about their operating capabilities instead of just suddenly having a rug pulled out. That's what made it really unfortunate because for all of the annoyances and server crashes and random ship SRPs from CCP it would have resulted in, I did want to see a push into actual 1DQ. That was a proper push into it, but
I
it's
I'm
what
not
it
gonna
is.
lie, I would have loved to see how the grid really would have worked. Having all of those Fortizars just shooting at everything, trying to get in.
Well,
Because even if, you'd have to start on the outside and try to work your way in. but the other forts, some of them could still target you pretty far away, and the Keepstars are huge, so it kind of limited where you could start trying to punch through. And then we had a whole backup grid, so like,
Well, if
I
Ether
think
Wars had actually resulted in anything, it could have been a very different dynamic.
I think too, one of the things that I think Pappy, I guess, really didn't. So one of the things that Pappy had going for it was that it had some really talented FCs, and there were a lot of groups within Pappy that had the ability to react fast and were able to do things, fast. What we saw during the war was that Pappy would attack, and granted, like goons would come on and they would, react and send all their supers and all that stuff, but it would take them some time. Pappy could have easily gone through and said, "Hey, we've got the time advantage since we're attacking first. Let's send all of our shit in through, you know, jam up the system. That way, when goons try to come in and try to get on grid, they're the ones having the trouble trying to load in." Whereas Pappy didn't do that.
well, the fact that a lot of times we did know when they were forming, and so we'd be able to like ping right after they did.
Well, yeah,
That's the hard
there's no
part
way
is
to
when you're
avoid
trying to
that.
ping so many people. Yeah, the more people involved in your group is a higher chance of a problem, someone saying the wrong thing. So, when you've got a group of 100 people, you can keep things a little bit easier on the DL, but when you're trying to ping out to, 10,000, it's a very different story. Or even 2,000.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, the only way to win that fight would have been just repeated head bashing on both sides. That just a lot, and which could have been fun. I mean, even in the last months and weeks as things were winding down, there was still plenty of like fun incidental fights to be had, and we definitely dunked a lot of goons on our way out, and a lot of test fleets especially, but a lot of, let's just call them Pappy fleets, certainly met their demise through unwise choices. But that's the thing about going on those deployments, right? That you can find some good fights pretty much every day, and but yeah, if there had been a little bit more cohesion and a little bit more sound military and economic thinking, I think things could have turned out differently. And it also didn't help that you had someone fanning flames and saying things like "we're going to utterly destroy goons," which was never the point, and also completely impossible.
But it was the point. That's the thing. Like, why else would you come to our space and literally systematically burn down every building
To
one
win,
at a time?
to win. There's a difference
But
between
that,
winning and utterly destroying it. You're not going to utterly
yeah, but
destroy
you
goons
didn't
no matter
have to.
how many structures you ref.
But the problem is you guys it was PGL who set up the framework for your guys' downfall. Billy started it, right? He put the first beam up, and then PGL just built on top of it. Billy said, "We're here for eradication." Blah blah
Yeah,
blah. And I know that he's like, I know, if you read later, it says, "I know that's not realistic," but blah blah blah. Whatever. You still said,
you still said it. You
but
you, you can't
but then
take those words away.
PGL, not like a week or two later, or even before that, even said, "We're gonna chase the Goonies down, and we're gonna go wherever they go, and we're gonna fuck them wherever they're at. We're never gonna let them build up again." So why would we abandon our best strategic position and go somewhere else to where we don't have 5 Keepstars in one system and a bunch of 4 stars and shit like that? Because everyone's like, why don't you just run to NPC Delve? Well, because we already have all this
Why
stuff
would you?
here, and if you're gonna follow
No,
us,
the only
like,
reason
if we went anywhere else, you would have just followed anyway. So might as well stay here and make you take it.
no, that was of course the thing that had to be done. The only thing that would have pushed goons out is being pushed out. That was well known by anybody with half a brain to look at it. But
Well, so I think my favorite part, right, is that who was it? It was PGL that said it, right? During what was it, YZ9? Yeah, when they did the Titan boson trick.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So PGL was like, "Oh yeah, tie dye. No, you're fucking stupid, dude. Like, yeah, dude, tie dye. Every FC knows about tie dye. Every FC knows, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, dude, right? You're right. Everybody knows about the lag of the servers once you hit a critical mass. Everybody knows about the tie-dye. Everybody knows about the effects of tie-dye in damage application and damage in tie-dye, right? There's a certain order that in tie-dye that damage comes out. And I'm just kind of like, the rest of the war, right? Especially in the tie-dye fights, right? Like, it's just mistake after mistake by like Pappy, where they just kind of
All
didn't
jump in at
understand.
once, and
Yeah, they didn't understand the mechanics of tie-dye. Like, light your super Sino on your friendly structure, not on grid with everybody else, right? That way, if the thing that happened, right? Like in T2, you don't whelp 100 Titans, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but 100 Titans is a lot.
it's just, it was fun to watch. As I said, they really should have just given up after they couldn't break through to get an Asbel into E3 or whatever. Not, they really should have just like cut their ties and saved everybody 4 months of waiting. I feel bad for Headliner a little bit if he wasn't a dick, because like Headliner took a month of work off to grind through Athenors and other structures. And I'm like, I wouldn't have taken work off for this shit. I mean, I have missed a day because I stayed up late for the M2 fight, but other than that, I wouldn't use my vacation.
Yeah, I don't know about using your vacation for it, but that's the Headliner way, isn't it? I mean, I don't feel bad for Headliner any more than I would feel bad for anyone in any group except Brave and Legacy, Brave and Test, right? At the end, while definitely people lost their ships, I'm not trying to pretend Horde lost no ships or any of the other groups, PL whatever, didn't lose ships, but it was there for content, came for content, got the content, went home. That's a fairly op success from a very narrow point of view of getting content, and that's not me spinning to say someone else won the war. That's not the point. The point is that the entire other end of the Pappy temporary friendship was entirely about let's go blow some stuff up. And while there's some boring structure effing to be had in between, there were also some great fights, and that's what I came for. That's what I deployed for. That's what I got, and I was happy to go home. Ironically, because of real life things, I missed M2, so I didn't get the pleasure of having my super stuck for days or weeks. I missed out on that pleasure entirely. Although one of my supers was on loan and was stuck there for several days, so I got the loan. I got the pleasure by proxy.
I mean, my dread died because I logged it in by accident, so I was only stuck for like a day.
Well done. By accident. By accident.
Yeah.
Air quotes. Quote unquote by accident.
So yeah, one other thing that I think is actually kind of interesting is so now Test is in a situation where there's a good chance they're going to be getting reset in the future. They're down in their deployment.
Oh, really?
What's going to happen to them?
What's this resetting? Like with
They-
Horde?
Supposedly.
Nice. Where did you hear this from? From diplomatic extraordinaire Sandrin or Carmen?
Just around the grapevine.
Yeah, because I found that I found Diva's ability to diplomatize to be that of a newt.
I thought you were going to say a rock.
I mean, tomato potato here. They can't. They have no idea of the. If Brave is still like, if they're not an ally, that's fine. But they were your allies, and I know that you're all pissy about Brave leadership, but you sound like a really angry ex-girlfriend harassing them as much as they do. And it looks really bad on Tess to be beating up basically the cutie punching bags.
I don't disagree. I don't really get the flares of animosity that occasionally rise up about from Test to Brave. That just it's not a good look. I'll put it that way. And I also don't really understand the point either.
I mean, it must have been bad enough because I mean, Villy left.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that? Is that the next
I mean,
thing?
what is there to talk about? We all knew he was retiring after the war, anyways, and now he's just going in a horde where he doesn't have to worry about like any participation,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it can just
that's
fade
where I would
away
go if I
into
didn't want to have to worry about participation. So I
and
get that.
fade away into non-existence because he's done. He doesn't have a voter base. He couldn't get back on the CSM even if he wanted to.
Well, no, yeah. I think choices were made that make
He is
that
now
difficult.
the highest losing person in the game.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough to say. I mean,
Hmm.
granted,
I'd
he
have to think
could.
about that.
I mean, he could. He could say, "I want to be on the CSM," and Horde could probably get him in. But again, he's actually. I'm pretty sure he's at his term limit, so that
Yeah,
might not even. Okay, well then, yeah,
yeah, but
no,
it's
then he
3 years
has
in
no
a
reason.
row, so you could take a year off and then go for the next one.
Yeah, it's as far as I know, the term limit isn't lifetime. It's just consecutive. So
Then theoretically, he could, if he after a year, if he wants to, trade places with Gobbins on and off every year, then he could theoretically just go
uh,
into CSM.
Horde is not going to trade Gobbins for Villy. That's not ever going to happen realistically. And that's not me speaking from any official standpoint. I don't know. I'm not privy to those kind of conversations in propaganda. I just I can think of like 6 people that they would alternate in for Goblins to get around the consecutive limits thing.
I
So
think I was I think I was talking to one of the hoarders, and I think RDMR was mentioned as being the next person.
I could see that.
I hear Riker's gonna get voted into CSM next year as the what did you call yourself? The Overlord
The
of
Minister of Truth.
the Minister of Truth.
That's not the slightest Orwellian. That bodes well for Hero's future.
Yeah, Riker's gonna get in the CSM this
We
year.
are at
All of
war with fire. We have always been at war with fire. Is that what's next? I'm
yeah,
waiting.
it's crazy.
I mean, I've seen so to use a line from I guess from the meta show, Fire. So Legacy had a ton of pickup guilds, but like Fire are the pickup guilds that Legacy didn't want.
That's
That
uh
sounds about right.
that's
Like
a fair statement. That's a fair
I,
statement. I
I
accept.
I've seen some I forget, it was like this total like weeb cube that weeb cubed alliances where I think their whole like one of their in-game channels is like lolly something, lollipop, or I have no idea, but it made me want to go recontemplate life.
Hmm.
Fire has been getting all uppity over there.
Fire's getting uppity because they're finally starting to hit resistance. I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but taking stuff without resistance, Goons did it in what, 20 days?
Yeah.
It's not hard, right? Like it's Fire's
Well,
finally
it's
starting to hit a
it's
wall.
labor intensive, but yeah, it's not difficult.
It
It's
involves
just more of
logging in and
a lot of
aligning
people.
when the FC says to, and all
Yeah,
that stuff
right.
that goons are bad at. But
Pretty
yeah, um, I'm interested to see what happens with fire. I want to see more conflict come out of that. I want to see some more fighting happen, and I'm not even talking about like horde versus fire or whatever. I'm just talking fighting in general. That's why I'm glad to see RC and some of the other states down there, and Hero, of course, take on fire, cause some conflict down there, spark it. That region of space has always been like it changes hands a lot, and it doesn't get enough fights at the same time. You know what I mean? I
Well, I
used to
think
live
the
in Wicked
biggest
Creek.
fear, right?
It's it's
I think
like
the
it's like
sorry.
a hot potato region with surprisingly little grand conflict to show for that kind of tumultuousness. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I apologize for interrupting. So I think the biggest thing, right, is like the amount of outside influence coming into the regions, right? Like people call third parties all the time, and of course, like if it's us versus fire, we don't we like we kind of don't want Horde to show up, we don't want Test to show up, but then Test shows up, and then so we have to call friends, and then their friends show up, and then Horde shows up, and then like it's just this compounding. Oh, who's got the bigger bat phone? So it's kind of a trolley region right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get away from that. It's not like people are. There's no honor when it comes to not losing. So people are always just going to employ bat phone. I think there's things that could be done to either make that more interesting or lessen the net effect of that. Like for example, say the fundamental way reffing structures works. But yeah, it kind of is what it is. There's always going to be some dogpiling and things like that. Um, so who's coming down that way to third party these days? Are you getting any third party interference, or is it just pretty much strictly bat phone friends showing up?
I mean, sometimes you get a muskie down here, and then other times it's just kind of like random bat phones that they call.
Sure, sure. 'Cause I'd like to see a little bit more interesting third partying going on, but you don't just really see it anymore,
I'd like
unfortunately.
to start seeing more smaller groups pop up. Like I've enjoyed more time in Eve and Hero than I've enjoyed anywhere else. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's fun being a part of a smaller group and starting something up and building it up from the ground.
Yeah, yeah. Kudos to you guys for doing that, especially in such a weird time in Eve's history and economy. That can't be fun. But we talked to Loki about that. Was that like a month ago or something on the show?
I hear
But
actually that Hero is actually accepting corp applications.
I've heard that too. So if
Can
you're
we?
out there and you're looking for a new group and you want to try the risky and live out of cargo containers and null sec stations or NPC stations for the rest of your life, no, I'm just kidding. But if you want to give it a go, HC Dot is recruiting, I hear, and have at it.
We
We
offer 15% moon tax and 0% structure tax.
Practically free.
Yeah, you can build all your stuff for free.
Yeah, and if you want the sort of, I want to, if you want to be in a place that's sort of trying to build the goon culture and believes in a lot of the goon principles of, hey, we want to make our members rich because rich members means that they'll get in ships and that they'll fly and fight. You know,
And
heroes.
provide you, 20 trillion in 4 months when you need it.
I was about to say, I don't think heroes at that point yet.
Get there in, what, 5-10 years? It'll be fine.
I mean, I am, but I mean, I don't know about the rest of you.
I don't know if any groups can get there in 5 or 10 years anymore. That CCP did some marvelous things to help that growth, and they're not doing those things anymore. So it was a magical time in history. So we'll see what the future brings. But I do wish the best, of course, to Hero and any new group out there starting up. And while I talk plenty of smack on them, any of the groups, including Fire and all of that, any of the non-major null blocks, I want to see them. There is a power vacuum in New Eden. It's been felt ever since since the death of GOTG, and I think that can be. I think a lot can come of that, and I'm actually looking forward to it, and I hope that something does come of it. I genuinely do.
All right. Well, I actually have to run, guys. So you guys have a great rest of your show.
All right, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
I don't know where I would, but yeah. I think that pretty much wraps up the show, guys. Yeah, first show of 2021. I think we
You're
did
off.
pretty well.
It's 2022. We are in the future. We are
Uh,
actually legitimately in the future now.
Fuck 2022. Yep. First, never mind. First show 2022. Looking to be a pretty good year. Also, as an update, we now have an official Between Two Keepstars Fortizard currently anchored. So yeah, stop by. I forget what the system name is. It's
Stop
it,
by, but we can't tell you where it is.
it's right next to Amar. You'll find it. It's the only Fortizar. It's under a corporation. It's it'll just be named Between Two Keepstars. So yeah, come pay us a visit. And yeah, hope to see you there. Also, IQ 300 is always recruiting.
Are you guys doing final thoughts?
Yep. We should probably wrap things up and do final thoughts.
Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. We had some sync installation issues upstairs, and I had to run, unfortunately.
Life is hard. Life is hard.
Life can be hard. Yep.
All right, my final thought is enjoy 2022. It's going to be a much better year than 2021 by default. And I hope it will. I genuinely hope it will be a better year for Eve. All the doomsaying we've done the past 4 months aside, uh, I for one welcome our new prosperity overlords. Giggle, giggle.
Loki, you want to do your final thought?
Our new prosperity overlords. Final thoughts. Hero Coalition is a new alliance that is recruiting corporations. If you're part of a serious corporation, you enjoy doing PvP or indie at a high level, give us a poke. You can talk to me. You can talk to our Diplos, and that's it.
Is there a website that people could possibly go to?
Yeah, just IQ300.net, and that brings you straight to a Discord that has all the important people in it.
Alrighty. My final thought is I still want to get my Moloch and eventually get an official Between Two Keepstar. But we have a Fortizar now, so we're getting there. Anyway, I'd like to thank all the guests for coming. Actually, quite a few of the guests signed on. If y'all enjoyed what you're watching, New Eden post streams, Eve-related content, pretty much throughout the week. We've got actually a pretty impressive lineup now. I think we're streaming something pretty much every other day at this point. But yeah, if you like this content, you want to see more like it, hit that follow button. You can always hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time. And remember, always bubble wrap your Keepstars.